Hi guys, it's April with Crafting with April. I know I promised you guys a no-sew ornament today, but it is going on 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I just got my shipment. I did get my stuff, so that no-sew ornament will be tomorrow. Today I'm going to do, this in quilting is called a Cathedral fold, I believe. And that's what we're going to be doing today. This is my mock-up. I had a few adjustments and everything to make on the pattern. It still turned out okay, but we're going to make the next one better. Or so I thought. I've been having one of those days. I miscalculated and sewed the wrong size seam and ate up my flowers. So that one's garbage. You hear it hit the trash can. So now we're on number 3. Everything adjusted and it should be fine now. You're going to have your main fabric, a 10 by 10 square, I believe it is. You can look and see what the measurements came out to be because I adjusted and changed, so I'm not positive. This is a very old pattern that I found, and the paper was all wrinkly and stuff like that, so I hope I got everything the right size in there now. This is our accent fabric, which is going to be the fabric that peeps through. This is going to be the backing fabric. I changed it a little bit because it had the gold on it, and I wanted a little bit thicker material for the back to match the front, because these layers here are so thick it made the back feel flimsy. So I beefed up. This is, I believe, a Waverly fabric. Comes in a fat quarter. You get several different colors at Walmart. I think it's like $4.88, something like that. This fabric is also from Walmart. It's got the gold shimmer on there. And then I got the green that matches that for my accent. This was also a fat quarter. I'm not sure if it was Waverly. It's thinner, and that's going to allow me to cut down on some of the thickness of some of the other materials. So once you've cut out your pattern, you're going to iron these, and I'm going to recommend that you either size them or starch them. If you're on an Explorer, you can use a really, really, really light bondable fabric. I wouldn't go heavy, just something light so that you can cut it, and that will be plenty for you. However, you're going to have ironing issues. So if you got something that you can peel off after you've cut, or either you can cut this by hand. Either way, whatever you prefer. But it needs some body so it's not floppy and flimsy. So we're going to take those, and I'm going to give you some ironing instructions so that you can iron everything, starch everything, do everything at once without having to run back and forth. You're going to need your fabric marker, measuring tape, or something to measure with. Anything that you can measure with, just to give you a guide. You can even use a button, and we'll get into that later. Your thread snips, your seam ripper, just in case you run into issues like I did. I even pulled my hanger out trying to do a corner on that last one, and I had to rip it out and put it back in. You're going to also need some kind of tacky glue. It doesn't have to be a fabric glue, just something. We're just going to glue these pieces down just on the 3-4 points, just to hold them in place so that you don't have to baste or you don't have to pin, and because it gets in a tight area, just something to hold it in place while you top stitch these areas. So that's all you need that for. It is optional. You can get by without it. You're going to need some kind of ribbon for your hanger, and of course a couple of pins, straight pins, and some thread. I have a doll needle, which is a really long, it's almost like it's got a sharp point to it, but it's not sharp. And that's so that we can push this through the center on the front and come out the back in the center. I got off a little bit on this one because I tried to use a shorter needle. You can get by, just be careful. I'm going to use this simply because it's easier and faster for me. So if you have a doll needle, get that out, and then you're going to need a regular needle and thread and a couple of decorative buttons. I have I think that's a navy blue button, but if you flip it over, it's gold. So I'm going to have the gold side showing to pull that in on the center for my back. And I'm going to use the ornament button that I had on the other for the front, I believe. I looked at a couple of others and I just didn't like the way they looked with these fabrics, so that's what I'm going to go with. So gather up all of your supplies and get ready, and take all of your pieces to the ironing board and starch them, size them, whatever you're going to do to give them some body. I'm just using starch. And iron everything, all of these, your triangles, your accent piece, and your backing piece flat. Then you're going to take your main fabric with the wrong sides together. You want the pretty side out. You're going to fold it in half and press it after you've starched it. And then you're going to fold it in half again and press it after you starched it. Keep that as straight and as precise as you can possibly keep it, as symmetrical. You don't want your corners and all that off. You want them to be perfectly straight. So you don't want to iron it off like this. It needs to be straight, and you'll see why here shortly. Keep that as symmetrical as you can possibly keep it all the way down to the other corner. See how when I got off, when I just flipped it over, so make sure that it's all symmetrical before you press it. And starching will help. It will keep it and give it some body and keep it from flopping around on you. But just get it really, really straight. Alright, so everybody go do your pressing, and I'll meet you back here in just a moment. Hi guys, I'm back. If you didn't turn off your iron, go turn your iron off because you're done ironing. No more ironing. We're going to, let me move some of my tools out of the way. I just wanted to make sure that I had everything. And if I forgot to tell you guys, you're going to need some polyfill. Alright, starting with your piece that you, and I apologize, you are not through ironing. I forgot one more step. You got one more thing to iron, and then you can turn your iron off. So make sure you turn your iron off after this step. You're going to open up that square, and you're going to use your iron marks or your lines to fold in each corner, keeping this as symmetrical as you can possibly keep it. I usually make sure that I've got my corner down here very tight and this fabric is together before I press. And I'm just going to finger press this here because I have hopefully enough starch in there to hold it and mark my line for me. And I can adjust when I get to the ironing board too if I need to. Because you can see how that looks a little off even though it meets there in the middle. I don't know if that's my fabric. My fabric was extremely close to 10 inches. So I may have been slightly short. Yours should meet up. I'm going to have to pull that in a little bit. I may have to do a little trimming to get mine to work. But yours should be fine. As long as your fabric was the correct size to cut on the maker. And then you're going to pull all those corners in, like I said, keeping this flat and as symmetrical as you possibly can. And you're going to press it. Then you're going to, after you've pressed it, you're going to pull in those corners to the center, keeping it as symmetrical as you possibly can, and press it. Then you're done. Bring your material back, turn off your irons, and I'll see you back in just a moment. Okay guys, I'm back. And I have pressed all of my four corners in, keeping them as symmetrical as possible. And then I have folded those four corners into the center, doing the same thing. So you should have something that looks similar to, if you open one flap, an envelope. So that's what you should be looking at. Now, take your accent fabric, and I may have, like I said, my material was not square. I know it wasn't. And I may take this down a 1/4 inch in the file for you guys. I think it, yeah, I'm going to have to trim mine. And that's simply because my fabric was right at 10 inches wide, so it didn't really want to fit on the maker. let's see, I'm going to keep trying to keep this as square as possible. That's not square there either. I must have stretched this when I put it on my mat. That's one thing that I've noticed. You want to be careful not to stretch your fabric when you put it on your maker mat, your fabric mat, to be cut. And that's still not square. Missed a tail. Okay. Let's see. This piece should be 5 by 5. Let me see if that fits. I may have to trim. And if you have to trim yours, just trim it off till it fits inside the square without wrinkling. You don't want it to buckle up or fold over when you place it inside. So let me trim that one off too. I can see that that's not square too. I don't know why. I had to have stretched it. It helps if you put the blade out. Let's see. Well, let's see if that will fit. Yeah, but don't try to make it fit if it doesn't fit. See how that's curling up right there? Just trim a little bit off. And I'm using my big cutter here. But I don't know where my 6" is. I can't find it. There. Now that fits in there perfectly without moving when I close the tabs. So once you have yours fit in there, safety first, let's put that thing away. Once you have that done, now you want to, like I said, you can use a button, you can use whatever. You want to place something in the center. Get your fabric marker, you can use your tape measure, but you're just going to mark about a 1/4 inch up. I can see that. You just want to mark them all basically right about the same area. That dot is not going to take on that metallic, but I know where it's at. So once you have it marked, you're going to take this to the sewing machine just like it is, and you're going to stitch this side down and just come straight over and stop at your dot. And then you're going to clip your threads and start your machine again, and you're going to do the same here, starting at this dot and ending at this dot, making sure that this is all flat in the center. You don't want anything overlaying or on top of each other. It needs to be perfectly flat, and you're just stitching a plus sign basically right there in the middle. And don't worry about the back, it'll be fine. Once you have that stitched, come back and we'll go to the next step. Well, that only took a few seconds. Okay, and you want to make sure that you snip all your threads off. We don't want any loose threads getting in our way, getting all tangled up. Sorry, I can't see. Let me pick that up. And if you use the coordinating thread, you probably won't hardly even see this. So on the next step, you're going to get your triangles, and you're going to place them. You can pin them, you can baste them, you can stitch them along the edge. I find I'm just dry placing them right now to make sure that everything lines up like I want. Let's see. You want to keep that long edge on the edge there. Just leave the same distance as you possibly can on each side, pointing towards the center. It's a little wide for whatever reason. I'm going to swap these. It's easier if you can keep them in the order that they were, just exactly how they were cut. Sometimes that's not possible. Okay. That looks pretty good to me. I apologize, my dogs are being vocal. The kids are coming home from school. But you're just going to take your tacky glue at this point, and you're just going to put some on each tip. And this doesn't need to be any special glue. We're just holding this temporary. Put a little dab there on the middle. And then you're just going to place it. Let me see if I can turn that. You just want it to hold down while we stitch is all we're doing. Nothing spectacular or anything. Let me glue these other four really, or the three really quickly. Like I said, just a temporary hold. Any thick glue will work. Your art glitter glue will not work in this instance because it's too thin. You need something that's thick. You don't want it to soak into the fabric, really. You just want it to hold it down for you. And I don't know if I mentioned, this is, I believe, a Cathedral. It's old, but everything old is new again, right? There are several different videos and stuff. So some techniques may be different from others. Some of them may be the same. And once you have that glued, make sure you don't have any stray strings or anything like that. You're going to take, and you can pin this or you can fold it. I'm going to be using probably, I don't know, my zipper foot. I have another foot that just has one edge off of it, similar to a zipper foot. I forgot what it's called. But you're just going to fold this back, and it's going to naturally curve, and that's what you want, okay? And you're just going to stitch right on the edge of that curve all the way around. Let me see if I can get this closer for you to see. You're going to be stitching right here, right where my nails are meeting. And yes, they need to be done. I lost some polish yesterday. But you're just going to do that. And you're going to do that all the way around. You can work however you want. Do all of them on one side of the triangle this way, going around like a pinwheel, and then go back and do the other side, or you can do both sides at once. That's up to you. But you're just barely going to stitch this down right on that edge where those little dots are. If you can see that. Right here. And you're going to stitch it from the bottom all the way up to the center. No need to stop, back stitch, all of that. This is just a pretty decorative stitch, and it will be seen, so you want to keep it as straight as possible along that curve. But down here in the corners, you're going to lose a little piece of that, so don't worry about back stitching and making it thick in the middle by doing all that stitching. It's not necessary. Alright, so everybody go stitch, and we'll be back. Shouldn't take you more than, I don't know, 5 minutes. Okay guys, I'm back, and I took a little longer than that 5 minutes because I had an epiphany moment, and I am adding something to this project. I wanted to do a Grinch button in the middle and couldn't find one, so I forgot I had these epiphany buttons. They're like a self-stick. They go in this little punch, and you put your photo in there and the button, and you punch it down, and it sticks, because those are sticky, to the button. And I decided I would make my own Grinch buttons. if it cut through. I'm using some Elizabeth Craft really thick paper here. Perfect. Now, because this is so thick, I don't know if I'm going to do that in that Epiphany maker or not. We can try. So I'm going to put, if I can remember how this thing works. That might be. I don't remember how it works. I would have to look it up. So what I am going to do is I am going to peel this and line up best I can and press. And I don't like the way those holes are going. Oh, good, I was able to get it off. Oh, that's great. Perfect. I'm going to press that down. I wish I could remember. Oh, I do remember. I remember. Let's see if I can get the other one in there and do this. Take that off. Nope, I don't remember. Anyway, let's see if I can line this one up. And I'm just going to do Grinch buttons on the front and the back. See, you don't even need the little machine to do this. But this is great if you want to do photos of your kids or something like that on there. But they're from Epiphany Crafts. This is the button number 20. And then you also will need the punch to do photos and things like that. But it basically punches the paper, sticks everything together, all at one fatal swoop. But because I can't remember how to work it without looking it up, it's been that long since I used it. Probably 2 years. But I'm going to be using those Grinch buttons on here. I think that's going to be cute. So, that being said, let's go to our next step. Next step, you want to cut your length of ribbon for your hanger. When you put your ribbon on there, leave a little hanging out, and don't, a lot of people make this mistake when they make ornaments. They put their ribbon together like this. So when it hangs on the tree, like so, it's going to hang sideways. My finger's a branch, it's going to make that hang sideways. But if you just take your ribbon and lay it like this, kind of let it crisscross like so, then when it hangs, it will hang straight on the tree. If you can see that, how I got it kind of crisscrossed, it will hang on the tree straight instead of hanging to the side. Just a little FYI there. So with the front facing you, choose a corner, doesn't matter, and put your ribbon down. Let it hang out just a tiny bit. And then with the right side of your backing fabric, place that over it. And you may want to put a pin there just to hold your ribbon and stuff in place while you stitch. I would reinforce that stitch as well. Then get everything all lined up. You just need a couple of pins in this. You don't need many. I'm not even going all the way through to the backing. At this particular point, this is going to be pretty thick. So don't worry about that. Mark each side. And leave yourself at least 3 fingers width to get your hand in there to turn this, because that's a lot of fabric to pull through a teeny tiny hole, so you don't want to do that on this. And I like to leave it opposite the ribbon. So go ahead and stitch, start and reinforce at your first pin, come around, reinforce here at your ribbon, come around, come down this side, and come around to this point and stop that and reinforce. That way you have an opening to turn this. Once you have that stitched, I'll meet. Hey guys, I'm back, and I have stitched all along the edge, as you should have. When you go to open this, make sure you don't catch under that green fabric that we glued down. You want to go in between. You can clip off that ribbon if you want to. I just leave it. That gives it some reinforcement so it doesn't pull out and unravel. And you're just going to turn the ornament right side out. Sometimes it's easier to get those top corners first, and then the rest will usually just pull right on through. Don't pull too hard on your ribbon. You'll do what I did and snap it right out of there, like I did on that last one that I threw in the garbage. Okay, and push those corners out really good. Actually, I forgot to clip my corners. That's why they're not. Make sure you clip your corners. See, I'm getting so ahead of myself. You just want to clip off that excess on each corner so that it'll turn a little smoother. Don't clip your stitches, so clip it from the light side showing so you can see where your stitches are at. Let me push that one back through so I can see it. I apologize if I'm a little off camera. I just want to be able to see it without messing up where I stitched. Yeah. I'll just clip that ribbon on off. Won't hurt anything. Okay. All right. And I see I clipped my ribbon and almost pulled it off of there. I am going to go and stitch that really quick so it doesn't pull out, and I'll be back with you guys. Okay guys, I had a little bit of a boo-boo, so you might want to make your seam a 1/4 inch and not go as close to the edge as I did. To keep from having to rip everything apart, I just stitched over in the middle of that red dot and tucked my ribbon back behind it, which left me a red thread over on this side. So I'm going to have a thread showing no matter where, but I am going to hand stitch a double bow, one for each side, and I'm going to put a bow right there on this one to hide it. So even though we have mistakes and boo-boos happen, there's ways of fixing them. So I'll just make a cute little bow here at the end and put on there to hide that, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. You may want to do that even if you don't have a boo-boo. You may like the way it looks. But just push those corners out best you can. And now you want to, whatever your seam allowance was, you'll want to press this under on both sides, so that when you go to whip stitch these closed, it will already be folded for you and it won't be a hassle to close it, because once it's stuffed it's hard. But at this point you want to take and put in your polyfill. Stuff it as much as you can. And yes, that is the raw edge right there of that green, because that's going to be in my seam that turns under. So don't worry about those. And before I get this stuffed too much, I'm going to go press my edge real quick. Okay guys, I've pressed and I'm about to stuff, but I'm going to make my bow. I thought I'd show you guys how I do these little ones. As I get my length of ribbon, oops, I'm sorry, I bumped my camera. Get your length of ribbon, and then I make 2 little loops and then pull my fingers out. I cross over and tuck one of them in, and then adjust accordingly and pull it tight. And then you can adjust the size. So now I have 2 small bows, and then I'll cut the tails to kind of match, and I'm going to stitch one here and one here to cover that that's red stitching, to give mine a little bit of extra oomph. Okay, and let's stuff it. Get it stuffed to about, well, until it's as puffy as you want it. You don't want it to be loose, but you don't want it to be so tight that you can't stitch a button onto it. And I know I'm a little off camera there. Let's see, I'm maybe just a tiny bit more. So that it gets into the corners. And I don't like to put one big piece in there. I like to put several small ones so that you can break it up and push it around. Now I'm not going to stand here, but you guys, pretty much everybody knows how to do a closing stitch, a whip stitch. And you're just going to whip stitch this edge closed. Okay? And then I'll be back with it. Okay guys, I have whip stitched mine closed. And I'm not the perfect finishing sewer. I hate to finish sewing. But you just whip stitch and close that shut so that it is ready. I've also put my ribbons on to hide the boo-boo that I had. And I kind of like that. I think I like that better. Depends on what look you want. If you want a simpler look, then this is what you want to go with. And if you want a more frilly look, this is fine too. Our next step is our buttons. And because I didn't use the Epiphany thing, I'm going to have to press some holes here in my Grinch buttons. There we go. Just going to put those through. Go through each side to make sure I can push it back in there. Don't want it to lift in the middle. Come loose. Stick it back down. Okay, now I have my buttons ready. So you're going to take your doll needle or your craft needle, upholstery needles will work. Just something, you need a long needle, because a regular needle or cross stitch needle, as you can see, great pincushion, is not going to come all the way through. So, gotta have something. And I'm going to thread this really quick, if I can see it. And I'm just using regular sewing thread. You can use embroidery thread if you think that it needs that kind of attention. I don't think that it does. Regular sewing thread, it's an ornament. It's only going to be used for a few days a year, and it's going to be hanging. So, okay, I've knotted my thread. The first thing I'm going to do is go straight through the center. And that looks good. And come back out the center there. And I'm going to pull that. And if you want it to kind of help you, go right back down beside that. Come back up through the center on the other side. And kind of mash it flat. May have overstuffed this one, but I like it. So I'm going to stay with it. And then I'm going to take the first button and I'm going up through the bottom of it. And I'm placing it so that the face will be in the right position. And then go down to the other hole. Come back out the center on the other side. I don't think my knot held. I think it pulled back through. That's okay. It held on the other side. Get this twisted like I want. and then through the bottom of the other button. Trying to keep this on camera, but I'm getting tangled. Let me get untangled here. And I want to line this one up so that it hangs straight as well. And then I'm just going to go down. And then I have to come back up through the center and hit the hole for this one. Like so. So you're through both buttons at this point. And holding them into position, trying to keep them in the same position. Go back through. And I'm pushing that one up. I know that this may be hard for you guys to see, and I may get off camera occasionally, but you get the general idea of what I'm doing here. And the tighter I press those buttons down, the more indentation that I'm going to get. And I'm just going to do this 2 or 3 times. And after the first few times, it usually stays into place so that you can go straight up and down through the buttons. One more time. Can always cheat and look at where the holes are. And that looks good to me on that. Now to finish it, you're going to come through one side like here. We're not going into the pillow. I'm coming off to the side, and I'm bringing that doll needle up so that my thread is underneath the button. Okay, and I apologize, I really hit the camera that time. I'm taking that thread while it's on the underneath side, and I'm just wrapping it around that button several times, and that's going to give me a finish. That's not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to clip it off. Take my finger, run it around there, and make sure that my buttons are where I want them. And there you have it. Completed, finished, my little Grinch ornament. I hope that you guys found this tutorial helpful, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also join our Facebook group, Cricut Crafting and Cricut Maker Projects. You guys have a wonderful day. Make something beautiful. And show me your designs, what you came up with, which fabrics you used, what kind of buttons and embellishments. And get ready for day 3. The supplies came today, and tomorrow is going to be a no-sew ornament. You can do all of these so far that we have done with a Cricut, with an Explorer, with a Cricut Maker, or by cutting by hand. So get ready for tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. Enjoy.